Aryna Sabalenka won the Laureus Sportswoman of the Year, but the world's cameras, they followed someone else entirely. A 20-year-old Philippine tennis phenom stepped onto the most glamorous red carpet in global sport, not as a winner, not as a champion, and somehow, inexplicably, outshone the woman holding the trophy. The gown did it. One beige Filipiniana dress, handcrafted by a Filipino designer blood-related to the athlete wearing it, detonated across every major sports outlet before Sabalenka even finished her acceptance speech. Nobody planned for this, nobody predicted this, and absolutely nobody, not the organizers, not the press, certainly not Sabalenka's camp, saw it coming. This is the night Madrid witnessed something rarer than a Grand Slam upset, a guest becoming the headline, a dress becoming the story, and a nation becoming the loudest voice in the room. Stay locked in, because what unfolded at the Palacio de Cibeles on April 21, 2026 will be discussed long after every trophy in that room collects dust. Madrid in April carries a particular electricity. The clay courts bake under Iberian sun, the WTA machines hum with anticipation, and the Mutua Madrid Open casts its shadow over every athlete who dares enter the city. But before the first ball was struck, before the first grunt echoed across center court, the sporting universe gathered somewhere far more elegant, the Palacio de Cibeles, for the 2026 Laureus World Sports Awards, a ceremony so prestigious, so suffocatingly exclusive, it carries a singular nickname among athletes across every discipline, the Oscars of sport. And Rhett Eala walked through those doors without a nomination, without an award, without even a seated position at the tournament about to begin around the corner. She arrived ranked number 44 in the world, as a guest, just a guest. But there is something profoundly dangerous about underestimating Rhett Eala on any stage, clay, hard court, or red carpet. Raised inside the Rafael Nadal Academy right there in Spain, sharpened by years of European clay campaigns, forged through grueling qualifiers and Grand Slam debuts, this young Filipino has spent her entire career walking into rooms where people expected less from her and delivering devastation in return. This night, she delivered differently. No racket, no match, no scoreboard. Just a vision in beige Filipiniana, an iconic Filipino formal gown stitched together by her own uncle, Rhett Eala, a fashion designer whose reputation extends far beyond the Philippines. The dress moved like ceremony itself, structured yet fluid, proud yet graceful, unmistakably rooted in a culture most of that Madrid crowd had never genuinely seen represented on a stage this significant. When Alex appeared on the red carpet, she didn't just walk it, she claimed it. Every step deliberate, every angle composed. Sandwiched between greatness, she later captioned a photograph beside Novak Djokovic, 22 Grand Slam champion, and Eileen Gu, 3-time Olympic gold medalist, two of the most decorated athletes breathing air on this planet. Rhett Eala, between them, smiling like she belonged. Because she did. But here's what nobody anticipated. The photograph wouldn't be the talking point. The gown would. A single beige Filipiniana, designed by family, worn by a daughter of the Philippines, would ignite a firestorm of coverage, commentary, and comparison that reached Aryna Sabalenka's orbit and refused to leave. Ask yourself this: when was the last time a guest outpublicized the winner? When was the last time a dress generated more column inches than a trophy? That night happened, and Madrid has never forgotten it. Rhett Eala did not design a gown, he constructed a statement. Every element of that beige Filipiniana carried intention. The fabric honored indigenous Filipino craftsmanship. The silhouette, traditional yet modern, rooted yet elevated, communicated something no press release ever could. That Filipino artistry belongs in the most sophisticated spaces on earth, not as novelty, not as spectacle, but as genuine, breathing excellence. Alex wore it with complete ownership, no hesitation, no performance of humility. She stood at that red carpet like someone who had rehearsed this moment not in front of mirrors, but on clay courts, in early morning training sessions, in quiet defeats abroad that nobody covered, and in victories that shook small arenas across Southeast Asia. This was not vanity, this was identity. And the cameras agreed immediately. Fashion journalists who arrived to document Sabalenka's Sportswoman of the Year moment found themselves rerouted. Style correspondents who had pre-written their pieces about the Belarus powerhouse's evening wear found new drafts forming. International publications, outlets that rarely, if ever, position a number 44 ranked tennis player in their lead paragraphs, began publishing pieces centered not on who won the Laureus Award, but on who wore the Laureus ceremony. Headlines materialized with stunning speed. Philippines shines at Madrid's Oscars of Sport. Rhett Eala's Filipiniana dominates the Laureus red carpet, the dress the world couldn't stop photographing. And with every shared article, every Instagram story, every repost across Filipino diaspora communities from Dubai to California, the coverage multiplied into something no publicist could manufacture and no award committee could replicate. Meanwhile, Aryna Sabalenka, two-time Grand Slam champion, WTA #1 contender, freshly crowned Laureus Sportswoman of the Year, gave her acceptance remarks to a room that was simultaneously scanning their phones for photographs of someone who hadn't won anything. Does that sting? Of course it stings. And here is where the discomfort begins, because nobody orchestrated this. Nobody campaigned against Sabalenka. No agenda existed behind that Filipiniana. Just a young woman, her uncle's creation, and a culture refusing to stay invisible. The question the internet began asking was sharper, more uncomfortable. In an award ceremony built to celebrate sporting greatness, how did a gown outperform a trophy? The answer arrives in Chapter 3, and it is more complicated than anyone expected.
Pull back from the social media metrics. Step away from the hot takes and the engagement dashboards. Look at what actually happened in that Palacio de Cibeles, Madrid, on April 21, 2026, and ask a simpler question. When did a Filipino woman last stand between two of sport's most globally celebrated figures and belong there completely? Rhett Eala, trained at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Spain, the very country hosting both the ceremony and the tournament that followed, photographed beside Djokovic and Eileen Gu, wearing a gown handcrafted by Philippine-born artistry, representing a tennis program still building its global infrastructure. This was not incidental symbolism. This was the Philippines announcing itself at the highest table without apology, without explanation, without permission requested from anyone. Rhett Eala's Filipiniana design carried weight beyond fashion. The garment communicated a direct lineage, from the islands through family hands onto an international stage. In a ceremony dominated by European and American athletes, a Southeast Asian cultural artifact claimed prominent space. That disruption of the visual norm matters in ways that extend beyond sport, touching diaspora identity, representation politics, and the question of which bodies and which aesthetics the global sports media considers worth sustained attention. Filipino communities worldwide absorbed this moment with a ferocity that revealed how starved they had been for it. Not just for Eala's athletic achievements, though those achievements are real and accelerating, with the number 44 ranking representing a genuinely remarkable climb, but for the image itself. A Filipina daughter, her uncle's creation draped across her shoulders, standing at the intersection of fashion and sport's most prestigious ceremony, undeniably visible, undeniably excellent, undeniably themselves. That image circulated further than any match result. It moved faster than any ranking update. It penetrated audiences who had never watched a WTA match, who would struggle to identify a clay court surface, but who understood immediately and viscerally the significance of that photograph. And then, the very next day, Rhett Eala picked up a racket and went back to work. The Madrid Open awaited. Rome awaited. The French Open, Roland Garros, Queen of Clay, awaited on May 24th. Wimbledon awaited. The U.S. Open awaited. An entire season of high-stakes tennis stretched ahead of a woman who had just spent one extraordinary evening reminding the world that she exists on multiple frequencies simultaneously. Champion. Ambassador, daughter of a culture that produces quiet excellence in rooms that were never originally designed to hold it. Here is where this story refuses a clean ending, because the best stories always do. Aryna Sabalenka will continue dominating women's tennis. Her Laureus Award will not be diminished by one evening's coverage detour. She remains one of the most ferocious competitors the sport has ever produced, and the 2026 season will yield further evidence of exactly how far her ambition extends. Rhett Eala will continue climbing. The clay campaigns in Madrid, Rome, and Paris represent the sharpest preparation available for Roland Garros, and a player who reached number 44 in the world with relative youth and absolute determination does not plateau easily. She is building towards something, a Grand Slam breakthrough that increasingly feels inevitable rather than aspirational. But the conversation ignited by one beige Filipiniana at one Spanish ceremony will echo beyond both their careers, because it touched something the sporting world rarely examines with genuine honesty: the distance between achievement and visibility, between earning recognition and receiving it, between being excellent and being seen. Rhett Eala was seen at the Laureus Awards, completely, fully, internationally, in a way that transcended her current ranking, her current title collection, her current position in the sport's established hierarchy. She was seen as a representative of something larger than herself, carrying a culture's craft on her shoulders, standing in a room that the global sport built without her in the original blueprints. And the world looked. And kept looking, and couldn't explain entirely why, except that the image contained something true, something earned, something that arrived without performance or calculation, which is precisely the quality most impossible to manufacture and most impossible to ignore. Sabalenka won the trophy, Eala wore the culture, and somehow, inexplicably, beautifully, both moments will be remembered. So here is the question this story leaves behind, the one worth sitting with, worth arguing about in the comments, worth carrying into every conversation about sport, representation, and whose stories deserve amplification. In a world that claims to celebrate excellence, is it enough to win the award, or does the conversation around you reveal something the trophy alone never could? That night in Madrid, no racket was swung, no set was won, no ranking point exchanged hands. Yet Rhett Eala left that ceremony carrying something heavier than a trophy, a cultural moment etched permanently into the record of what Filipino sport has achieved on the world's biggest stages. Rhett Eala's Filipiniana didn't compete with Sabalenka's award, it competed with invisibility, and it won. Subscribe right now, because this channel covers the stories inside the sport that the official broadcasts skip over. Rhett Eala's journey is only beginning, and every chapter coming after this one promises to be more extraordinary than the last. Hit subscribe, ring that bell, and bring someone with you who needs to know this name. Rhett Eala. Remember it, the world already has.